Good evening, everyone. I'm Iris Benajini Mizumoto, Registered Migration Agent for Bridge Oz Migration Consultants. And tonight we're going to be talking about the Tasmania nomination program for 2024-2025. So Tasmania allocation for these years is 2,100 visas for the 190 and 760 for the 491. And we're going to go for a brief overview of the requirements, nomination pathways, selection criteria, and the processes. So, in one word, in brief overview, is that they have several pathways, but for those who are overseas, they're only going to invite you if you have a job offer in either in the health sector for 190 or in the nomination if you're in one of their occupation lists for 491. They have several pathways as for 190 as resident in Tasmania or for the 491. And I will move here because there's an allocation here. That's the total allocation that we already discussed. So the nomination pathways. So Tasmania has several pathways and different requirements for each of the pathways. The skilled occupation lists apply for the Tasmania skilled employment. So you must have an occupation in their priority list and be working in Tasmania for 6 months immediately before your application, you're nominated for the application, or in a closely related. So closely related is for in the 4 same digit ASCII codes. Your employment must be an average of at least 20 hours per week, and you may be considered to the pathway if you are a subcontractor, but you must have a related skills assessment and at least 12 months as a business activity. So if you have your own business in there, you need to prove that you've been working there for at least 12 months. If your occupation is not on the skilled occupation list, you must be working there you must be in Tasmania in your employment for at least 15 months. And the position must still be available for the next year. So you need to prove, you need to get a declaration for your employer or a contract that shows that your contract is still open for another 12 months. If you, there's also the Tasmanian established resident stream, which is where you've been living there for a fair amount of time. So if you've been living there for 3 years, and no more than 50% of your total Australian resident was spent in another state. So let's say if you've been in Australia for 6 years and you live 3 years in Tasmania, that's fine. But if you have been in Australia for 7 years and you've only been there for 3 years, then you will not meet that requirement. You can be employed in Tasmania in a role equivalent to the Australian New Zealand skilled occupation skills list from 1 to 3. So that's a high skill level. It does not need to be related to your occupation, the nominated occupation, but it needs to be at a high skill level, including 12 months in the last 2 years. And that needs to be at least 20 hours per week. You could be employed in Tasmania, including if you have employment that it's a lower skill level, so 4 to 5, you must show that you've been working for at least 18 months in the last 3 years. If you have a business in Tasmania and you have operated in the last 2 years with earnings equivalent to the TAS meet, so 73,150, you may also qualify for 190 nomination under the established resident stream. If you're an overseas applicant, you need to have a full-time offer in an occupation in the health sector. So there's really no other alternative. If you're overseas, you cannot put, that does not matter if you select your name on Skills Select. They're not selecting overseas applicant unless you have a job offer in the health sector for 190. For the 491, the requirements are quite similar to the 190, but they require less. The period of time that you must be there is it's shorter. So you must be working in Tasmania for 6 months immediately before your application in an occupation and a skill level 1, 2, 3. Employment must be in your nominated occupation or closely related in the last 3 months. So if you are working in an occupation that's not related to your work, so to your nominated occupation, then the employment must be for 6 months. So, but if you're working in an occupation that is closely related to your skills assessment, then 3 months is enough. If you have an occupation that's at a lower skill level from 4 to 5, you need to provide evidence that you've been working for at least 12 months. And you need a job offer proving that that employment is ongoing for at least the next 6 months, and there's a shortage in that area of work. Your employment must be at least 20 hours per week over the 6-month period immediately before lodging your application. And again, the same thing if you're a subcontractor. You can still be considered as long as your business activity in Tasmania is for 12 months or more. And the position must be available for at least 12 months on the nominated occupation or closely related. The 491 also has the stream for the Tasmanian graduate. You must have completed a CRICOS registered course in Tasmania, studied and lived for at least 40 weeks, 1 year, and completed all courses in Tasmania. The course could be up to cert level, leading to a qualification in the ASCO group 3 or 4, so that's skill level 3 to 4. You must be currently living in Tasmania and, of course, intending to remain in Tasmania. So for the Tasmania established resident, you must have been living in Tasmania for at least 2 years for the 491. So the 190 was 3 years. For the 491 is 3 years. You must be employed in Tasmania in a role equivalent to skill level 1 or 2 and having at least 6 months of work in that level. That employment does not have to be in your nominated occupation. Or if you're employed in Tasmania for 12 months out of the last 18 months in a role with a lower skill level from 4 to 5, you can also qualify for that stream. Or if you have operated a business in the last 2 years and you have a taxable income that is at least the minimum income threshold, so 73,150, you can also qualify for a nomination under the established resident stream. There's also the business operator. So if you have a business operating for at least 12 months with a taxable income, with taxable earnings equivalent to 85% of the TISMIT, so that will be around $62,000, you can qualify for under that stream. They don't accept a few business like subcontracting business, massage therapy. Massage therapy they do accept, but you must have a health provider. No, so it must be remedial massage. And you must demonstrate you have an understanding of employment obligations in Australia. For the 491, overseas applicants may qualify for the visa if they have a full-time job offer in one of the eligible occupations, so the Tasmania occupation list. And they used to have an overseas applicant by invitation where they will select you based on the skill select, but that is currently closed. So the selection criteria, they have a very complex priority attribute selection, where if when you register your interest, you're going to be given a color. So you're going to be gold, green, orange plus, and based on your priority, if you go to their website and put your details in there. And that's how they make their selection criteria. For the skill and employment pathway, that's where it applies actually. So that's where your chances will increase. The other pathways, they are just based on really you meeting the criteria and your points. So GOAT, you have a skills assessment and directly related employment for at least 3 months, included in the critical role list. There's a critical role list in there. Or you have been employed in a role at a skill level 1 to 3 in an area related to your nominated occupation in the last 2 years. Or you have been employed in a role at a skill level 1 to 3 in a directly related area in your nominated occupation for 9 months. There is the orange plus, where they will look into your base salary. So if you have a salary, therefore, that is over 98,000, that will give you the orange plus priority list. And the same if you have been working there for 2 years prior, and your experience in Australia in a skill role 1 to 3, that also gives you that scoring. They also have the priority criteria orange. It's where you have a slightly lower salary, so you're being receiving you've been paid a salary or receiving an income from your business of at least the TAS meet, which is 73,000, and you currently being paid base salary or receive income from a business at least $67,000 a year as well, and you speak proficient English, you have a minimum qualification directly related to your current employment, you have lived in Tasmania for at least 2 years, your spouse is employed in a skilled role for at least 2 years, you have been employed in Tasmania for at least the last 6 months in an area directly related to a skills assessment, or your spouse has completed a study in Tasmania. So these are all things that they use to create the priority list for the priority rating for the skilled employment stream. The process is similar to the other states. So you lodge your EOI. You can select Tasmania, and you can select other states as well. You need to register your interests with Migration Tasmania. Once you are invited to apply for the nomination, you need to provide all the evidence that they ask. There's a fee that you have to pay to apply for your nomination, and 28 days to apply. Once you get your nomination, then you can apply for the visa, and that must be done within 60 days. So before we finish, I just realized that we're missing one slide on the 190 pathways. For the 190, you can still qualify under the TAS Skilled Graduate Pathway. The main difference between the 491 and the 190 is that to qualify for the 190, you must have studied and lived in Tasmania for at least 2 years and not 1 year. And of course, the same other requirements apply. So you must have completed a CRICOS registered course. You must have studied full-time in Tasmania, and you are still living in Tasmania and intending to continue to live in Tasmania. So I think that was the only pathway that was missing in the slides. Thank you. We're going to go for the questions now. And if you have any questions about any of the pathways, please make sure you ask through. Thank you.